Hey guys, welcome back to Homegroups. We'll be continuing with our Blessing Blockers series. Today we'll be focusing on disobedience. We see rules everywhere. Wherever we go, whatever we do, there's always some kind of rules. From starting as kids, we grow up and there's certain rules we have to follow, certain things that we have to do that our parents tell us to do. When we're driving on the roads, there's always some kind of laws and speed limits and different rules with the government as well. In our jobs, in business, everything, you have to follow these specific things and have permits for different things. And everywhere we go, there's always some kind of rules. And just a couple questions to start off with to kind of get you guys thinking is, number one, what do you feel about rules? When you see different rules and different laws, what does it make you feel? Number two, what are some reasons why we disobey those rules? And question number three is, why do those rules exist in the first place? Think about those things and we'll be back. A lot of times we look at rules as something that limits us, as something that puts us in a box that doesn't allow us to reach certain things that we want to reach or do certain things that we want to do. But in reality, rules are there to help us out. They're there to guide us and help things flow more easily, to put order into things. Imagine if there were no laws in the government, there were no laws for the roads. Imagine how chaotic that would be. Or if in our families, our parents didn't set rules for us. They want us to have success. They want us to be the best children and become the best people we can possibly be, but they didn't set rules for us. Would that make us successful, or would that just bring a huge mess into our lives? And the Bible talks a lot about being obedient. And I want you guys to just answer a few questions regarding that. Number one, what are some biblical examples where God set rules or gave specific commands to people? Number two, what was the outcome of those people's obedience or disobedience? And the third question I want you guys to think about is, why does God want us to be obedient? In my sermon, I talked about a man named Achan. You guys can read the full story from Joshua chapter 5, verse 13 through the end of chapter 7. But Achan just witnessed God's miraculous victory over the city of Jericho, and he witnessed other things, how God provided for them over and over again, how God gave them victory over other enemies of theirs, and God gave them a simple commandment when they were attacking Jericho. It was not to take any of the treasures. Achan ended up disobeying God, and he took those treasures, and something told him that God wasn't able to provide with either those treasures or something even better than what Achan had stolen. And Achan's disobedience led to his own death, and they blocked off those blessings that God had in store for him. God wants to provide for us. God wants to bless us. God wants to give us and to empower us, to use us. But sometimes the thing that stands in the way of us receiving that is our own disobedience. And God has already promised us many different blessings in our lives, but sometimes when we trust ourselves and when we disobey God, that's the only thing that stops us from receiving those promises and blessings. And I want to use this moment just to share maybe some testimonies that you have of how either you obeyed God or maybe you even disobeyed God and the consequences of that, or how your obedience led to God's blessings and God's promises being fulfilled. Before we wrap up, I know sometimes we have questions such as, I'm not sure what God wants me to do, in this specific season in my life, or what am I supposed to be obedient in? And yeah, sometimes God gives us specific tasks that he wants to do or specific things, but sometimes he just wants us to be obedient in the general things first. And the main two commandments are love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and just like it, love your neighbor as yourself. So maybe those are the things that you got to focus on and be obedient in, and God's going to give you bigger things and more specific things. And I want to use this last last few minutes to just go around a circle and think for a few minutes, what does God want you to do in this season of your life? Or where are you supposed to be obedient right now? So think about those things and maybe write them down, or maybe go around in a circle and just mention those things, talk about those things. And my challenge is to try to work on those things. God has a lot of promises. He has a whole lot of blessings that He wants to give us. But sometimes the biggest thing that's standing in the way of those promises coming into play are our obedience or our disobedience. So talk about those things. God bless you guys. Have an awesome rest of the night.